Does prayer really work? I can't believe I saw someone ask this question, but I think that whoever's probably asking this is maybe someone who has not really seen things happen when they prayed, or maybe it's a new believer or something like that. But anyway, ultimately, yes, prayer does work. I myself I'm a testament of that. I've seen things happen that would not have happened if it weren't for God. But yes, prayer works. In fact, we're told to pray. So why would the Bible tell us to pray if it was ineffective? And I'm going to give you some verses that kind of solidify this point that prayer really does work. Um, but yes, we should be praying to communicate with God, to receive comfort, and to ask Him to intervene on our behalf. And it's not that God, is, a genie or, something like that where we can just go to Him and, hey, do this for me. No, it's just that we ask Him to move in certain situations, especially according to His will. I always harp on that point, but very important. So let me give you some verses to maybe help prove that prayer really does work. Matthew 21:22, if you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Again, the Bible reiterates that if we ask for things, God will move. Again, always according to His will. This verse is isolated. You have to read it in context, but it's always according to His will. Next is 1 John 5:14 and 15. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to His will, there you go, He hears us. And if we know that He hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have what we asked Him for. So essentially, again, aligning our wills with God, that is kind of the core crux of prayer, is that prayer should always be driven not out of selfish ambition, but for things that align with God's will. Too many people, I think, pray for things for the wrong motive. And it's not that God doesn't, hear those prayers, but He's not going to act on them if it doesn't align to His will. So you might wonder why some people get the things that they ask for if they were selfish things. Well, sometimes God allows us to have those things. It's not that God Himself necessarily gave them to us, but He did allow us, because you think that Satan doesn't also hear our prayers and try to give us the things that we want of the world? How many people have prayed for money or fame or fortune or, for a certain spouse or, a certain job or whatever, and they got that thing, and it turned out to be that thing was not the best for them. Maybe it worked actively against them for their, their marriage or their mental health or their physical health, or it drew them away from God, right? And at the time, it seemed like a blessing, but over time, you realize that it was really actually a curse in disguise, not a blessing in disguise. It's because Satan does give us things that we ask for if it's worldly. And sometimes God does too, but it's only if we're going to be good stewards of it. Let me give you an example. Years ago, I had a marketing business. I talk about this all the time. And I just prayed every day, God, bless me, give me money, bless me so that I can, get this business off the ground. I can make money. I prayed it every day, and eventually the business took off. But as soon as the business took off, I forgot God. I stopped praying to Him as much. I stopped reading my Bible, and I just focused on that. And I became prideful, where it was all about the money I was making, not the money that God was giving me. And eventually, I lost that business. It went under. I lost everything. I had to pay back a bunch of money to taxes and all these different services I couldn't afford. And it was very humbling. Well, God allowed me to be successful, but it wasn't the best thing for me, because I had not built up the skills to be a good steward of the money that I already had. So I wanted more, but I wasn't financially responsible with what I initially had. So even though I did get what I wanted, it wasn't the best thing for me. And God allowed it, but it was to teach me a lesson, because in the end, I got very humbled by that, and it brought me back to God. So anyway, let's read the last verse that I have for you, Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. So again, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, it says in every situation, with prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. So the Bible tells us that not only to pray, but that prayer is effective, and not even just effective, but essential for our relationship with Christ. I mean, prayer is how we talk to God. It's how we, keep that dialogue open. Every relationship is built on communication. It's built on dialogue. It's built on spending time together. So our prayer is how we spend time with God, and how he, in turn talks to us and responds to us. But one key thing to remember is that we should not just go in prayer to ask for things. We should be going into prayer just to tell God, hey, I'm just grateful for all the things you've already done. I just praise you. And, just kind of giving him honor and praise and glory, because God has done so much for us that I don't even think we realize all of the great things that he's done. But anyway, that's about it. Does prayer really work? Yes. So let me give you an example. I said that I was going to give you an example. So the job that I have, I was in a call center before this job, and I really, really did not like the call center. It wore on me. I was going through a depression, and I tried to force other jobs to work out while I was there. Like, I was ready to quit, and I was trying to make all these other things work, and nothing was working out. It just kept falling flat, job after job after job. Maybe I'd call in and they'd accept the application, but then they wouldn't give me the interview. Or I'd submit an application and not hear anything. Or I'd talk to someone and be like, oh, yeah, I have an opportunity. Let me hook you up with this person that can get you in. And then I'd talk to them, and then nothing. So, just opportunity after opportunity was not working out. And I was getting really frustrated. But then one day I broke and I said, you know what, God, I submit it to you. I surrender. I was like, I just prayed to God, God, if you have something for me, if you give me an opportunity, I want it to be of you. I will stop trying to force it. I submit it to you. If you have an opportunity for me, then I'll take it. But if you want me to stay, then I will submit to your will and I will stay. And it was probably one of the most humbling prayers I've ever prayed. Well, sure enough, less than a week later, I went on a tour of the place that I work now, Coda. And that I happened to take the day off of work, and I went, with my wife, and we went on a tour of Coda because our church uses that coffee. So I went on a tour, and while I was there, the guy that became my boss, the guy that was there, that was the boss of the place, was saying, hey, we're looking for someone to do warehouse work if you guys know anyone. He just happened to say that right before we left, right before we were about to leave. And I actually have warehouse work experience. My very first full-time job was working in a warehouse, and I loved it. And I told him, yeah, I'm interested. And so we set up an interview a couple days later. And before I went into the interview, my wife and I prayed again, hey, if this is going to work out, it's got to have this pay, it's got to have these benefits, and it's got to have these things set in place for us to know for sure that this is of God. And so we prayed about those things and we put it before God. And sure enough, when I went for the interview, the pay was within the range that I needed, and the benefits were either there or they were about to have those benefits shortly because they were changing their structure. And the guy offered me the job that day. So I was very humbled by that. And I told God, if you put me in this job, I will not leave until you tell me I can leave. And I've been there ever since. So God really does hear us, and he really does move. And when we humble ourselves and we submit these things in prayer, he moves. And I've seen him, listen, I've seen him heal people. I've seen him cast out demons. I've seen him, break people of things that they've been in bondage of for years. I've seen him just move in people that have never even felt his presence before, just in a simple prayer. So prayer does work. It really is effective. Are we going to see that stuff all the time? Probably not. Most of us won't. But that doesn't mean that we don't still submit things in prayer over and over and over and over again. And in fact, one thing that I've noticed is, I'm willing to pray for whoever. Like I've prayed for homeless people, drug addicts, people in restaurants, like, and that's not for me to say like, oh, I'm so great. I'm just saying like, I'll pray for anyone, but I didn't initially start that way. It's because I just kept praying over and over and over. And I know that prayer works. So I want other people to experience that. So anyway, if you're looking for some advice on how to pray, I wasn't going to plug my book, but I do have a book. It is available on Amazon. There should be a link in the description if you want to learn more about how to pray out loud. Like if you want to get better at praying, not just to God, but for other people as well. I do have a book. It is available on Amazon, and you can pick it up for a few dollars. And I think it's good. I wrote it by hand, so I really like it. But yeah, does prayer work? Yes, it does.